What's up, everybody? This is attorney Dan Nguyen here again, and I want to talk a little bit more about trademarks and why do you need a federal registration anyways. Now, there's kind of two trademark systems. One is at the state level and one is at the federal level. You can get a state level. One of the restrictions about getting a state trademark is your rights are only reserved in that particular state. A much better option is if you qualify is to get a federal trademark registration. All right, so I'm going to share why you would want a federal registration anyways, right? Okay, so first is it prevents problems before they even start. And so if you ever bought a house before, you know that there's like a stack of papers you got to sign before you actually get the house. And one of the things you sign is actually part of it is the deed. That the seller signs, but it's part of the same process. But the deed system is basically a running list of who owns this house, so that so obviously whoever's looking at the house can know who owns it, and there's a kind of a public ledger as to who owns that particular property and who's claiming ownership, and so that no one else can kind of swoop in and say, yeah, I actually own this house, and they try to sell from underneath them. It's very similar with the trademark system. Is the federal government has an online database, and you can see who owns trademarks on that list. And one of the processes that we go through for our clients is like, okay, is there anybody else with the same name that has a registration or application in place? If there is, and we believe it's kind of too close, there's a conflict, we said, hey, we exit out, say, hey, let's go back. You can have problems with this application. Let's go back to the drawing board, maybe think of a new name or think of a variation so that, this particular conflict won't block you from getting a registration. So, having a federal registration will help, problems before they start. So when other people try to get a registration, what they should be doing is looking at the list and see if there's any conflicting marks. And if they're doing their due diligence correctly, they're going to say, I forget this. Let's kind of move on to the next one. You get actually free enforcement from the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So what does this mean? It's like, the examining attorney at the United States Patent and Trademark Office will do their own research and see, what other conflicting marks are there. And so if yours is same or similar, most likely your application or registration is going to show up, and they're going to say, no, we can't let you register this just quite yet. They'll issue an office action. Here's a registration, and basically tell us reasons why we should be able to let yours go through with this registration in place. And so, by having a registration, the United States Patent and Trademark Office does a little bit of enforcement for you. And who doesn't like other people doing the heavy lifting for you just a little bit, right? So that's another benefit, right? You actually get nationwide protection, even if you don't do business in all 50 states. So one of the conditions of getting a federal trademark registration is that you have to do what's called interstate commerce. So aside from some nuances, basically doing business with one other state. And so say you're in California and you do business with Texas, you have clients in Texas or customers in Texas, you satisfy the interstate commerce or use in commerce requirement for the trademark registration, and you don't get protection not just in California and Texas, but in all 50 states, assuming you meet all the other qualifications. And so this is really helpful if you plan to expand into other states, and you get your protection in all 50 states as soon as you get your trademark registration. Okay. You can use after 5 years, you get they can be incontestable. And so if you meet the qualifications after 5 years of your registration, you file some paperwork with the state and basically say, hey, there's been no conflicts, or there's been no disputes, basically. And it makes it much, much harder for anyone to come in after you to dispute the validity of your term. Now, there's some exceptions, but I just want to make sure that you guys understand that there are some roadblocks to getting to challenge it, but it makes it a lot harder. And so it may discourage your kind of casual trademark enforcement or something like that. And so this is a really powerful weapon to have if you have a trademark registration. I recommend everyone doing this. I had one particular person didn't do it. We'll kind of see what effects that has, but it's I certainly recommend it for people who have trademark registrations. Okay, you can use the R in the circle. So you've probably seen the circle symbol before. That is a notation for a registration, and it's different from the TM or TM in the circle. That's just a common law registration. And so the R in the circle is a kind of a much bigger sword you can yield around and telling people, hey, I have this trademark registration. Common law registration or just common law rights, not quite as strong. There's still some rights attached to it, but it's not quite as strong as a federal trademark registration. And so, having that symbol has a certain cachet to it, tells other people, hey, I'm serious about business. I'm serious about protecting my mark. And, we're serious about going to go after people who try to infringe on our mark. Sometimes you can get triple damages and attorney's fees. And so not a lot of people like to pay attorney's fees. So what if you were able to get the other side to pay for it? So kind of depending on the situation, you can get a triple amount, triple money damages, and get the other side to pay your attorney's fees. And so getting the federal trademark registration, this is one of the big benefits because, even if you have to bring a lawsuit, like you're still out that money, right? But in certain situations, you can get triple times the amount that you've lost, and then get the other side to pay your attorney's fees, which is kind of a pretty cool thing to have. In another infringement cases, you might what's called like a statutory damages. And so, if you ever pay for pay-per-view, there's probably like equally a bigger number of, or at least maybe a bigger number of people that didn't buy the pay-per-view. And so kind of the arguments for like, pros against piracy is like, hey, we lost all this money because, all these people didn't pay for pay-per-view. But the flip side is like, hey, how do you know these people would actually have bought the real thing? Or so another situation I've heard is like kind of like counterfeit bags. It's like, if the bags weren't this cheap, would they have bought the real one anyways, even if they had the money? So when it's hard to distinguish where money has been lost in infringement, in certain cases you can get what's called statutory damage, meaning you don't have to prove how much you've lost. The law will kind of set a minimum floor of amount of money you are able to get per infringement. And so that's another benefit of getting a trademark registration is where it's hard to prove how much money you lost because of the infringement. You might be able to get a kind of a floor set by the law, and partially to discourage trademark infringers. So, and lastly, actually helps avoid the expense of rebranding and a lawsuit. And so, going through the due diligence process, you're almost nearly certain that you're not infringing if you've done, the correct searches and things like that. But one of the things that it helps you with your marketing and your branding is like, you can usually be rest assured that you own this mark, there's no one else to use it, and you don't have to rebrand later on. So I had a client that, they wanted to get a registration. They actually waited too long, and so they might be infringing. And so they're investing a lot of their money and time into building this particular brand, but one day might come as they might have to rebrand all that. And so if they had acted soon enough, they might be able to avoid this. But that's sometimes the way it goes sometimes. So, hey, this is Dan a little bit longer, but I hope this is helpful into some of the reasons why you should get a federal trademark registration. Do you have any questions? You can pick up a copy of my book, mytmbook.com, and just pay for shipping, and we'll send that to you right away. I hope this has been helpful. Talk to you soon. Bye.